Hey YouTubers, Bud Light here again, part number 3, bringing light into this world of financial darkness. So I'm here again with Rhesa Funk. We're going to be talking about this behind us here a little bit later in the video. But this one, we already talked about Airbnbs, our part 1 and 2. And man, there's a wealth of knowledge there, ladies and gentlemen. If you have any desire or anything for Airbnbs, is to watch part 1 and 2. But part 3 here, we're going to talk about side hustles, because that's kind of what this channel's about, is side hustles. You have the Economic Ninja, you have Chris over at Financial Prepper, you got Clayton up in Vancouver, you got Genius Brady, you got all these people out there that
Bud Light.
and Bud Light. We're talking about side hustles. And the whole idea of side hustles is just, you got to get out there and just do something, because you don't know where you're going to end up. I mean, it may go kaput, or it could just take off. So, Rhesa, you were telling me that you started your first side hustle when you had your first job at 14 years old. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
When I was 14, I started teaching piano lessons. By the time I was 14, I'd been having piano lessons for 10 years. So I was pretty good at playing the piano. And I started a business teaching piano lessons. So we'll say that that was my job, because a side hustle is something that you do on the side from your regular job. So as a teenager, all the way through high school, I taught piano lessons. But when I was 14, I got a side hustle job, because one of the things that I can credit my mother with doing is that in my piano lessons, she bought a book of really old songs for me to learn. Old songs from the early hymns, and also old American tunes from the early 1900s. So my first side hustle job was based on having that book of old songs and also knowing how to play hymns, was to play background music for things that elderly people attended. And my great-grandparents actually gave me my first side hustle job. They hired me to play for their school reunion for the school that was started out here during the land run. And everybody there was in their 80s and 90s, and I played all the songs that they knew, and it was a huge hit. And from there, as a 14-year-old, I got hired by a nursing home, a local nursing home, to come once a month and play old songs there. And then from there, I was hired many times through high school to play background music. Remember, this is long before the internet was invented. There was no Spotify, there was no Play Tunes on your phone. It was somebody playing an instrument if you wanted to have music at your event. And my piano, if they had a piano, and played the songs they wanted to hear. That was my side hustle.
All
Gas
right.
money.
See, you just got to get out there, people, and do something, because you never know where it's going to go. So from there, Rhesa, after you went to college, you got a degree in advertising and journalism. And that's kind of your strong point, is advertising and marketing and writing.
That's correct.
So obviously you'll see this sign. It's backwards in the video because we got to see ourselves. But it's Funk Advertising. That's her company she has now. And we'll get to that a little bit later. But we're sitting in front of a hot tub here for a certain reason.
We are.
Can you tell us about this hot tub?
We're sitting in front of a hot tub because writing obituaries bought the hot tub.
As a side hustle.
As a side hustle. And many years ago, decades ago, when I first started working in journalism and advertising, one of the things that one time somebody asked me to help them write an obituary, because people, when you write obituary, are usually rushed. And a lot of times you just have the cut and dried form from the funeral home. And after one obituary, I saw that I could help people really capture who their loved one was, tell some stories, interview some family members, and write a really nice obituary that just wasn't the standard thing. That is a side hustle that started over 30 years ago, and I still save my obituary money. Specifically from writing obituaries, and obituary money bought the hot tub. Total side hustle. That is part of my business now, but way back in the day, that was not part of my business, but I'm still making obituary money.
All right. So from there, you started, she's a great public speaker. Her company, Funk Advertising, you're pretty well nationally known. You've worked with multi-million-dollar companies and everything, correct?
Won the highest awards there are to
Yep.
win in the
Oh
business.
yeah, she has.
6 times.
She's won how many times?
6 times.
She's won the highest award in the country for marketing, right? 6 times, ladies and gentlemen. So she kind of knows her stuff. But before we get to Funk Advertising, because that's what you're doing now, there was another one because you did public speaking. You called it Speckled Stick.
Speckled Stick. Yeah, Speckled Stick Public Speaking. That's right.
Okay, how did that start out? That started off as a side hustle.
That
too.
started off as a side hustle as
Oh,
well.
let me back up. I'm going to interrupt her. So during this time, she had a full-time career job in newspaper. Journalism,
advertising,
and advertising.
Journalism and advertising.
And so that's.
I had a corporate job, and I also had the side hustles, and that's why in the other previous videos you watched about the Airbnbs, we had no experience in Airbnbs, but we still stayed in our lane as to what we did know. And that is my biggest recommendation for a side hustle, is to stick with something that you know and find some way to do a little bit of that on the side. And in my corporate job, like Bud said, newspaper and advertising was my corporate job. I was hired by the Oklahoma Press Association to do sales training for them. And because of that, I just saw a niche in the market that there was nobody doing really newspaper sales training in all of the Midwest. So based on the biblical principle of the story of the speckled stick, y'all can look that up. We'll put the scripture reference right here. And I started that company with that in mind, and ended up traveling all over the United States doing sales training specifically for newspaper. So I stayed in my lane, but I took my experience that I had working a corporate job and turned that into a side hustle and made great money doing that. That's a long time ago, but yeah.
You quit your corporate job because her side hustle far exceeded what you were making on the corporate side.
My side hustle far exceeded what I was making my corporate job, but then I did get back into the corporate world in the same industry, newspaper and advertising.
Okay.
And I got back into that. But we're going to talk about this next.
Sure.
Then we're going to talk about the kids.
Yeah.
Okay. In my corporate job,
make this flow.
In my corporate job, I did a lot of journalism and advertising in the newspaper industry. But on the side for my customers, I was doing all kinds of things for them. I was helping them write letters to their customers. I was helping them build websites. If they needed a banner for a grand opening, because I felt that for my customers, I need to do everything up, besides just helping them with their newspaper advertising. Again, this is before the invention of the internet. And in helping them do all of those things, eventually it became where I had so many side hustles. I was writing letters for them. I was writing websites for them. I was cutting commercials, writing radio copy, all things in addition to newspaper, that it became obvious to me that I could own my own business doing all of these things. And that's how Funk Advertising started a long, long time ago.
One of the things I'm going to bring up is that she did, I hired her to do a deal for one of my companies on business development with the military industrial complex and everything. Her one letter generated a $22 million project for my company. And
I think I'm still waiting for my commission.
Yeah, well,
yeah, I'm still waiting for my commission.
She got paid. She got paid well, but not commission. We just paid for, and that one letter opened up so many doors, and it got a $20 million project. So
but
that's
the one thing I want to interject there is that you need to learn as you do your side hustle. Like a little bit ago, Bud said you never know what it's going to turn into, and you need to learn from everything that you did. And when I wrote that letter for his company, and he got the $22 million contract, I changed my business to say, I write this letter for you, and I'll do it for X number of dollars, a big amount. I charge a big amount to write those letters that get those kind of contracts, but then I added commission, that I want a percentage of the commission that the letter generates. You always got to be willing to change your hustle.
Yeah, change your hustle. But yeah, I mean, we pay, I think, $5,000 or $7,000 or something like that for just one letter. But that one letter brought in $22 million. So that's a pretty good deal. So we got the funk advertising. This is what you still do 100% of the time now.
This is my full-time job. We've talked about my side hustles in video 1 and 2. This is my full-time job.
Yeah, and so she's self-employed with Funk Advertising, an LLC, obviously, a corporation.
Put a lot of people to
And
work.
she works with multiple countries across the nation now.
Companies. Companies.
Companies, yes. And, well, individuals every now and then, if you compare. Brady, talking to you, Genius Brady. So we're really pointing Genius Brady out on this. But
Poor Brady.
Poor Brady. All right, but we have one more story on the side hustle that became famous
Yes.
because of her. Go ahead, tell the
Yes.
story.
When our youngest son was 13, we made our kids work. All 4 of our kids had jobs starting when they were very, very young, all kinds of jobs through our companies, but also jobs for other people. But he wanted to go to a church camp in Florida, which was a long ways from Oklahoma and very expensive. And we said, well, if you can make the money for it, you can go to that church camp in Florida. And we lived across the road from some people who had sheep. And for those that don't know, animal manure is a organic compound that works like fertilizer. And that was the only fertilizer before chemical fertilizers came along. And there was a local farmer's market, and a lot of people wanted to grow organically. And he started scooping poop and putting it, it was already dried, and when poop dries, it has no smell, but it is very, very rich in the nutrients that you need for your garden. He started scooping the poop and selling it at the farmer's market. His best friend got involved with him, and long story short,
What was the name of it?
we helped them start a company, and they chose the name of Manure Gourmet. And they set up at the farmer's market like a restaurant. They dressed in chef hats and chef aprons. They had their manure menu of cow wow, stud crud, billy chili, which is goat manure. They went to the circus and got pack-a-poo. They got elephant poop. And they had all kinds of drying stations on our property where we lived. They ended up hiring 14 of their teenage friends who were also 13, 14, and 15. They made enough money to buy a dump truck. They bought an old dump truck where they scooped poop. And long story short, we talk about the importance of marketing your side hustle.
Yeah.
The marketing for the side hustle ended up at the very end of them being on The Tonight Show with Jay Leno.
Yep, Jay Leno.
With Manure Gourmet. And we had to be ready for that. And that's one of the things you need to look at in your side hustles. You need to be ready for big business. When Bud's company needed a letter, I was ready. I knew what to do, what to say, how to do the research. And that's why you should take it from what you already know, so that when an opportunity like Bud's letter comes along or this Manure Gourmet, we were ready and we knew what to do for the publicity. We had the website, which websites had just been invented when Manure Gourmet started. It's been nearly almost 20 years ago now. And that night, off of their appearance on The Tonight Show with Jay Leno, 2 14-year-olds sold $20,000 of little tiny gift bags of poop.
Of poop.
Poop.
Selling poop.
Selling poop
And
is what they did.
Hundreds of thousands of dollars.
And they did that all through high school. By the time they were seniors, they had scooped, well, our son alone had scooped almost 1 million pounds of poop. And of course, people say, oh, why didn't you continue it? That's a great thing about a side hustle, is when you're sick of it or you're done with it, you can just quit it. You can quit doing it. And they had scooped all the poop they wanted to, and Manure Gourmet closed and was a great. I highly encourage you to help your children be entrepreneurs and help them start side hustles too. For them, it might just be like you had the girl on previously that killed gophers. Fabulous business. Who doesn't want their gophers killed?
Yeah, you need to go watch that. One of my past videos of gopher killing and catching.
The gopher killing.
Man, it was
girl.
awesome. So, but all right, ladies and gentlemen, is there anything else on side hustles you can think of that we can? I do have one more thing.
I could talk about side hustles all day, but we might want to wrap this one up.
We're going to wrap this up.
We'll be back.
Well, before we wrap it up, let's just real quickly hit because every side hustle I've talked about, she's talked about, what has been the common denominator in all these? It has been marketing. So tell maybe just a 1, 2, 3 on your marketing. Why is that so important and how?
Marketing is so important. It's also so simple. When you think about your side hustle, for example, when I started writing the obituaries, and I charged, and you know, the funeral home do it for free, or these days we talked earlier about companies. Now you can just get online and you can hire somebody in hire somebody in a foreign country to write anything for you for $35. Don't hesitate to charge your side hustle to make it be an expensive service. For example, the girl killing the gophers, or writing something. If I write an obituary for you, your obituary is your last personal marketing thing you will ever do. So we make it be so where everybody knows who you were and what you did, and it's also for the family also, so the family can see what you did. But back in the day, when I started the obituary writing, I made a flyer and said, you know, do you need help writing your obituaries? And I took it to every funeral home in town so that they would know when a family came in and, you know, they're sobbing and crying and don't know what to do. Well, here's somebody that can do all of the obituary writing for you. I also bought a little bitty tiny ad. Remember, newspaper days, newspaper, radio, TV, that's all we had. Put it on the page with the obituaries.
Okay.
So your marketing, you need to think about, how can I market my business to the audience that needs my service? And nowadays with social media, you can put up a business page and you can boost it directly to that audience in your area.
So she works with Facebook,
Instagram, all of it.
Twitter,
all of it,
and knows all the ins and outs on how to. You say boost? Is that what you said?
Well, boost is a Facebook term.
We boost our stuff.
Boost is a Facebook term.
Okay.
But sometimes you don't even need Facebook. You might need one specific promotional product. Can I tell the rubber story? Selling the rubber?
Sure.
Okay. I had to clear it with Bud Light here to be able to talk about this. The power of marketing doesn't always have to be social media. I worked with a company, an oil company, where they ran pipe to pump oil out of the ground, and we want to think about what motivates your audience and how do you need to motivate your audience. And the owner of this oil company was having trouble getting the guys to put the gaskets on the pipe when they were running it down the rig. If you forget a gasket, you have to pull all of those 1,000 feet of pipe and do it. That cost a lot of money. So when we looked at how we could help his business, that was the thing that he brought up. He said, you know, I can't get them to put their rubbers on. Consequently, over the very many years, I have sold to that company tens of thousands of condoms that say, don't forget your rubbers. In the first year of doing that campaign, remember this is to his employees, not out, just to his employees, it increased his profits by $7 million.
Wow.
Because every single time they put that gasket on. That's the importance of marketing, even for your side hustle. Who needs your service and how can you market it to them? And there might be specific ways, whether it's a banner on the corner, some t-shirts, or maybe some product placement.
So there's a difference between advertising and marketing.
Advertising is the idea. Marketing is the math. Marketing is nothing more than math. How much money do we want to make? Who's the people that we're going to get that money from? And how are we going to get our product, service, goods to them? That's marketing. Advertising is the creativity of how we make the math and the marketing work.
Okay. It's very short.
And that's the same principle you need for your side hustle.
All right. Well, we're going to end that video here. God bless everybody. Bud Light out, and go out and crush it. Talk to you later.
Thanks, Bud.